Hello friends, welcome back. Today we're going to keep working on this about control statements. So I'm going to open about control statements. You'll see that that's popping up in my text editor. You could also use your text editor to find it by pressing Command backspace. So about control statements. So test if then else statements. Okay, cool. We're going to do if then else then statements. So return true if return true, else return false. So true is going to be valued, and so we're setting this result variable to true value, a symbol that just says true value. So we can just say true value here. It will not be set to false value because true is true. Here we say result is equal to default value. If true, result is equal to true value. So true is true, so it sets result equal to true value here. So true value. If this were false, then this would be set to default value. Or if we were to say return if 2 is equal to 1, which is a false statement, is 2 is equal to 1, then we would return, then the result would stay because this would not execute, so this would be default value. But because this is true, then instead of default value we set it to true value. And so test if statement value returns, or statements return values. So value is equal, if true, true value, else false. So what does value equal? Well, because this is all within this block, then true value is going to be returned, true value. And then value is equal to, if false, so false is not going to execute, so it's not going to execute this bit of code, and then it does execute the value code. And so this statement here will return false value. So value will become equal to false value. Cool. So note, actually every statement in Ruby will return a value, not just if statements. So if statements don't, this is that implicit return sort of thing. So test if statements with no else with false conditional returns. So value is equal to, if false, make it a true value. Well, this is just going to be undefined, I think, because if we were to say, maybe put this up here into our REPL, we're going to say value is equal to, okay, so it's equal to nil. So if we were, say, if this were true, then we would end up setting value equal to true. But because we've got false here, this ends up equal to nil. So not undefined, but nil. So let's keep moving on. Test condition operators. True is equal to, here we have true value or the false value. So which one do you think will render out here? Here, what I'm thinking is this will be true and this will be false. So this takes the place of an if statement, and then this says this is the if the parameter is true, and then if it's not, it'll do this guy. Let's see what happens if we put it over here. Yeah, it shows if true, then return true value. But then if we do the same thing with a false parameter, then we do the false value. This could be the same as saying if 2 is equal to 1. You could pass parameters in like that, then you'd get your false value. That would be more useful in real programming. So this is almost misleading in its simplicity, but that's just how this works. So here we've got true value, and here we've got false value. Cool. So test if statement modifiers. So result is equal to default value, and then we say we want to set result equal to true value if true. We'd use this all the time in Ruby programming. Now, because true is true, then this is going to end up overriding result at this point, and it's going to be true value. Yeah. So here we can see result is equal to default value, and then we say result here. Well, here first off, let's make this false just to show it doesn't always do it, and we'll just make this useful programmer. So it's not going to render this. Result has not changed. So now result is still equal to the default value. But however, if we set result is equal to useful programmer, if true, or maybe say if 2 is equal to 2, then our result is equal to useful programmer. 2 is equal to 2 is the same thing as saying that this is true. So here, true value will be our result. Keep moving on. Let's see here. Test unless statement. So I really like the unless statement. It's just the opposite of an if statement. So unless false, so saying if not false, which as if true. So that this is very, it's hard to explain and it's hard to think about sometimes with the else statement, unless statement, but it's useful. So here we have set our result value to default, and what we're trying to do now, we say unless false. So think about this as if true. So unless just turns it around. So unless is the opposite of if. So unless false, so this, it is like, unless this is false, then we set the result is equal to a false value. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be a false value. Yeah, like unless 2 is equal to 2, that would, 2 is equal to 2 would be a true value. Equals, that's a true value. But 2 is equal to 1 is a false value. So if 2 is equal to 1, we wouldn't run it. But unless 2 is equal to 1, we will run it. So I think that the false value will play out here. False value. I just want to save that, and we're just going to run rake. I did a bunch of them. And you don't have to run rake after each one. You can run them after a bunch and see if you're still on track. So about control statements, now we're on line 73. So it looks like I've got them. I have all of these correct up until here. This kind of stuff you use all the time in programming in Ruby, and so it's very useful. So unless true, so we have, first we set our default value. Our result is equal to the default value, unless true. So true would be 2 is equal to 2. And then so if true 2 is not equal to 2, then it's false. So we would want to return the true value. So if you have a true value after an unless statement, you do not put the true value in there. This is going to say as the default value. And then so we test unless statement modifier. So here we have our result is set to a default value. And here we're going to say unless false, which ends up, we set this, then we set our result equal to a false value. So here, default value gets overridden by false value. So yeah, if we were to set our result equal to our default value, then our default value is there. We've got our result renders out to default value. And now if we pass in our result is equal to false value unless false, now our result has shifted to false value because of the unless statement. Cool. So we're moving on. Here we have test while statements. I is equal to 1, result is equal to 1. While I is less than or equal to 10, result is equal to result times I. And then we go I plus 1. Wow, this is a big jump here. But if you're familiar with looping in programming, then this isn't too intense. JavaScript has while statements just like this. I think all programming language have while statements. And so what does the result become? I is equal to the result times 1. Result times index. So index, while index is less than there. Jeez. Okay, so I'm going to save this and run rake. I think what's going to happen here is result's going to be equal to 1 times 1, and then it's going to be equal to 1 times 2, which is going to be 2, and then the result is going to be equal to 2 times 3, and I don't know exactly how to do that in my head. So what I would do here is copy this little bit of the result statement. Here we're setting an index of 1, and then we're saying the result is equal to 1, so while I is less than or equal to 10, then we're indexing that. And so this is going to return, looks like it doesn't return anything. So the problem with this is that we need to wrap this up with a statement that says, we need to wrap this up by returning result. So we could print the result here, and that would give us the result here. And so yeah, you can get it from here, or you can just run it in your IRB here. So here we've set an index of 1, we have a result to 1, while index is there. You know, initially the index is 1, and so 1 times 1 is 1, index is incremented, index becomes 2, boom, 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 it keeps going and going and going, and you get this huge number at the end. And so this is testing a while statement. Once the I becomes 10, well, you go through and the result runs again. So it'll be 10 times whatever that huge number is that it had as the result from the last time. And then the index will become 11. And then it'll loop back around and then says I is less than or equal to 11. No, 11 is less than or equal to 10. Well, once this becomes false, it's going to exit out of this while loop, and we can print the result here. Yeah, and so it becomes equal to this number, which would be impossible to figure out on your own, 3628800. So yeah, we can save that and run our rake task, and we'll probably see the result still printing out. Yeah, you can see that it's printing out here, so I'm just going to get rid of the print right now because that'll show up in all our tests if we leave that in there. So I'm going to save this, and it looks like we're on to line 102. 102, which is down here. So test break statements. So I is equal to 1, result is equal to 1. While true, okay, so this is just showing you that you can use a break statement to get out of a while loop. Because true is always going to be true. But here they're saying break unless I is less than or equal to 10. I actually think that this is going to be different because this won't. No, this should be exactly the same. So this is just showing you another way to break out of this loop. So this is going to be 3628880. This is a different way to write while loops using a unless conditional control statement. Cool. So let's run rake. I'm not 100% on this one. Looks like we're on line 101 now. So it wasn't right. 3628880. Oh, I'm missing a 0 here. All right, so we can run rake here. We know that'll pass now. Let's get moving down. Test break statement returns values. So break if if I is modulates 2. So we first set our index, and then we say our result is equal to, while I is less than there, we break if I, break I, break I. So I guess this means break the index if the index is there. Interesting. I actually haven't seen this used before. We could put the result here, and that would show us in a REPL if we were to throw this into a REPL. So it looks like it only gets to 2 in this situation. So yeah, initially it's I is equal to 1, and so once I modulo 2, that's going to be equal to 1, because 1 divided by 2 has a remainder. That's what this guy does. It gives us the remainder. 1 divided by 2 has a remainder of 1, which makes it so it won't break. And so then down here, I will be re-incremented to 2, and then we're still within this while loop. So now 2 is less than or equal to 10. Yes. Break 2, because I is now equal to 2, if 2 modulo 2 is equal to 0. Well, this turns out to be true, and so therefore we break and we return 2 here. Cool, and it looks like that's what they want here. We can run the rake task just to be sure. Cool, it looks correct. So let's go to the next one. So test next statement. So I is equal to 0, result is equal to an array. So while I is less than 10, so now I is going to go from 0 to 9. It's still going to increment 10 times, but it's going to start at 0. And I is equal to plus equals 1, so we increment I. And then we say next if I modulo 2 is equal to 0. So what's this going to do? This will make it so we break out of the loop temporary, but we're not going to break out of it permanently like we would in a break loop. So here at 0 modulo 2, there, I don't even know what's going to happen there. 0 modulo 2. Okay, that is going to equal to 0. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to end up, and then we're saying our result array, we're pushing it onto there. So we're going to have something that looks like 0. And then 1, we won't get 1 here. So we're going to get 2, 4, 6, 8. And we won't, while it's less than 10, we won't get 10. I don't think. So yeah, let me just put the result and within here. So I'm just going to actually use string interpolation so it's easier to see in here. result, and I'm just going to say this is the result, and P here I'm going to say the index. This is the index. So I'm using string interpolation so that I can show you how this works. And then finally we're going to put the result. After it all runs, we're going to print out this is the final result array. Cool. So now if we push this through here, it looks like I got something wrong. Command could not be found. 0 result here. Well, come to think of it, I think that we're going to have to put these guys up here. Index. Oh, okay. Actually, we don't need to do that. What we need to do is just make this I. Because I used index, the word index, rather than that. Could not find file. SH not found. You know what we can do is we can run the rake task. Command not found. 122. It's saying that it's failing. Please meditate on the following. About control statements, line 122. 122. It doesn't look like it's enjoying the fact that I'm printing the result, the index. This is the index. I is equal to 0, while I... Well, what happens if I just comment that out and run rake? Command not found. Okay, I'm not going to get away from this because I'm not exactly sure why it's failing. Let's run rake again. Command K. Okay, so look, I actually got this diametrically incorrect. It expected to have all the odd numbers, and I gave it all the even numbers. So this is going to be 1, this is going to be 3, this is going to be 5, oops, 5, this is going to be 7, and this is going to be 9. So it's saying next if I modulo 2. So it's saying, okay, if I modulo 2 is equal to 0. So on the first one, 0 is... This renders out to true, so it's not, it's moving outside of the loop and therefore missing the point in which it shuffles itself into the result. Cool. And so that's how you use next, and that's how next differs from break. Break stops the whole while loop, whereas next simply allows you to skip over it for the time being. And this is a cool thing about Ruby. I don't think that JavaScript has this in there as much. I'm not sure really. Test for statements. So here we've got an array is equal to fish and chips, and our result is equal to that. And so here we're doing our statements for item in array. So here the for is setting each of the values that are in this array to be set to equal to item. So result, and then we push in item dot upcase. And so what happens if we do you know, fish dot upcase in Ruby? We get uppercase fish. So basically this is going through and it's setting and pushing to the result array each of these words taken out and capitalized and then pushed in. So we're going to have fish, we're going to have and we're going to have chips. Cool. So let's save that and see what happens when we run the rake task. Nice. 139 is our new error, so that's our last one. So here they're showing us another way to do loops. So this was one way to do a for statement. We could have done this the same way by going by doing a normal for loop. So this looks like a for loop in JavaScript, but it's just the way that they do it in Ruby. It's a little bit easier to read perhaps, but it does take a second to get used to. So here, our sum is equal to, well, 10 dot times. So 10 times we're going to run through here. And so within each time, for 10 times, we're going to say sum plus 1. So 0 plus 1, 0 plus 2, 0 plus 3. It's going to do that 10 times, and it's going to end up giving us 10. We could do this by putting the sum here, and if we were to paste this in, we would see the result becomes 10. Cool. So that's going to be good for this one. If we run the rake task on here, after saving our work, we see that about true and false is our next one, which means that we're done with about control statements. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you in the next lesson.